Foreign Exchange Management Act 1999. This is the smallest chapter you have in the entire EBCL of CS Executive. So here this chapter, yes, for exam wise it might not be very important, but to understand other chapters of FEMA we should know the basics. Just like how I told you in the first chapter, that is Reserve Bank of India Act, we study that to understand what is the functions of Reserve Bank and how it is related to all the other laws. The FEMA introduction is required for us to understand what is FEMA. But before that, I always tell we should know a little bit of history. See, when we look at history, the Foreign Exchange Management Act was actually an answer to the 1991 liberalization which India took under the leadership of Narasimha Rao and Manmohan Singh. So what happened that time is that we had the entire economy which is opening up. Before that we were a closed economy. We were following mainly the Russian model, we were following the socialist model, and the reason for this also was again little bit of history. So India was ruled for many hundreds of years, and we always were very scared at the time of independence to have any relationship with other countries, because if you look at it, for almost 1000 years India was invaded by different forces, whether it was the forces which came in the early 1100, 1200, or later we had the British which ruled from 1600 to almost 1947. So for almost 1000 years the country was ruled by different forces. So now what happened is 1947 we decided, let us do everything on our own, we will not deal with others, we are scared that again they will rule us or some issues like that. So till 1991 we were a closed economy, but it did not work. The idea was good, it did not work, and India was at its lowest point in 1990 and 1991, and without option, okay, it was not by option, without option, India under the Prime Minister Narasimha Rao had to open up the economy, had to give jobs related to private sector, and also they gave the liberalization, privatization, globalization concept, where they also gave options for the private sector to open. Before, everything was government controlled, there was no private enterprises at all. So that is why we should know the history. Then in 1973 we had the Foreign Exchange Regulation Act. So this Foreign Exchange Regulation Act was what we call a draconian legislation. Basically any kind of foreign trade was highly regulated, almost you could not do it, it was that strict. Then we had something called as the Exchange Control Manual. Even there were a lot of issues for import and export. In fact, in one of the interviews, Narayan Murthy told he took 3 years to import one computer. Today you can just go to Flipkart, Amazon and buy it in 1 minute. That was the way it was. So our introduction of FEMA in this is the history first we should know. We were ruled for so many years, then we had independence 1947, then 1973 we had the Foreign Exchange Regulation Act. So import and export was highly regulated and we were not open, but 1991 we opened up the economy. So we also needed new law to regulate all this, for foreign direct investment to come, for us to export. There was no proper law. So 1999 the FEMA came in. So in this chapter we study mainly what is FEMA, what are the chapters which are there, what is the structure of FEMA, how FEMA works, what are the basics like capital account transaction and current account transaction. Of course in next chapter we study that in detail, but here we just study in brief what this is, and based on this you will get a good foundation of what is FEMA. FEMA is much more open than Foreign Exchange Regulation Act. It gives more powers, but at the same time we should be careful, because foreign exchange in one way it helps India, but also there could be misuse where there could be funding related to terror or anything else which affects the safety and security of India. So this act has totally 49 sections and it is divided into 7 chapters. And along with FEMA we also have the FEMA regulations and rules, and this will make sure that FEMA is implemented properly. So we have the act and the regulations. Together we will implement FEMA. And this introduction for you, again exam wise this chapter might not be very important, but to understand other chapters you have to know this chapter, especially the history, why we got FEMA and things like that. So now let us study this chapter in detail so that you understand very well, and also any doubts you have you can get in touch with us. In economic, business and commercial laws we have the core subject which is Foreign Exchange Management Act. See, in our old syllabus of our company secretary course, we did not have Foreign Exchange Management Act in such depth. So why do you think they have added this? So they want company secretary students to be well versed with Foreign Exchange Management Act, because this is one of the main things which you will be doing as a company secretary. This has become a core subject now, and within EBCL, that is why we have bulk of the concentration by ICSI, which is for our Foreign Exchange Management Act. Now let us look at what is the learning objectives of this lesson number 2. So lesson 1 we got a clear picture. In lesson 2 we have Foreign Exchange Management Act Introduction. This is a small lesson, but it gives you the entire overview about this chapter. So first let us try and understand what this is. So we have the Constitution of India, that is article number 246. So in article number 246 we have the Union List. So Union List basically talks about when the Constitution of India can make laws. So when we talk about Foreign Exchange Management Act, it is all about the inflow of money into India and the money going outside India in terms of foreign exchange. So how much foreign money India is getting and how much foreign money is going outside India, and what is the law relating to that, because today especially any business is exposed to foreign exchange. Even a small business has some kind of foreign income, and also the government of India is trying to encourage exports, and exports make a huge portion of a successful country's GDP. In India right now exports is not so big, and Indian government is trying to do a lot more to encourage exports. So you as a company secretary student should definitely know the Foreign Exchange Management Act, considering India is the fastest growing economy in the whole world. So how this law came into picture. So we have article 246 Union List. This is the Constitution of India. There we have 4 entries, that is 16, 36, 37 and 41. So here what they are saying is that what are the entries in which the government can make laws. So we have entry 16 on foreign jurisdiction, entry 36 which is there on the currency, entry 37 on foreign loans, and entry 41 on trade and commerce with foreign countries. So what is the enabling provision? So here you have to understand that what is enabling. So the enabling provisions is Constitution of India, and in that these 4 entries in the Constitution of India Union List. Remember we are talking about Union List. What are the laws which the central government can make? Union List means according to this the central government can make laws for these items. So what is there mainly? The legal framework for foreign exchange transactions in India. So this is nothing but the Foreign Exchange Management Act of 1999. So here we have 2 kinds of transactions mainly, capital account transaction and current account transactions. So the whole overview of this particular chapter is how we will understand the regulatory structure of FEMA. So what is the Foreign Exchange Management Act? What is its regulatory structure? So this is a very small chapter. We are just trying to understand the important concepts of how the Foreign Exchange Management Act is regulated. See, if you have a look at the preamble here, what it says. Foreign Exchange Management Act is an act to facilitate external trade. So we are promoting external trade. So we should remember the word promote. We are promoting external trade and payments. And most importantly, this you should never forget, orderly development. See, simply you can develop, correct? But if the country wants to develop properly, we should have a very good Foreign Exchange Management Act, and this act is for orderly development of the foreign exchange market in India. So this is very important for us to know. Now that we know the basics of what is this Foreign Exchange Management Act, we also know the learning objectives, why we have this lesson. Now let us go to the historical background. The historical background is all about Foreign Exchange Regulation Act, FERA. So we used to call FERA as a draconian legislation. I'll tell you why. So first let us try to understand little bit about the history of India. See, you know very well that India is one country which has been invaded for thousands of years. We had the Islamic invasion, then we had the Britishers who came and ruled us. So traditionally Indian mindset was that we don't want to be slaves, and we already have been invaded for thousands of years. So when we got independence in 1947, the general tendency is let us not deal with foreigners, let us not deal with any kind of foreign money. We don't want relations with foreign country. Also, India was more towards the Russian model. So Russian model was more about the communism, or what we can say exactly opposite of the capitalism. So capitalism and communism, these were the two main things in the whole world, and we had even World War relating to this, and also we had the Cold War. So everybody on USS side was the capitalist. Then we had people who are on the Russia, what today we call Russia, it was the USSR, correct, what we call Soviet Union, they were on one side. So you should know a little bit of history like this. So India was more towards USSR. We adopted the socialism or communism model. It was more about socialism in India. So socialism is more about government control. We don't have free market. So that is why we were not open to foreign business. So we need to understand that when we got independence, we had a very, very conservative approach. That is why we had the FERA. That FERA, what we have FEMA, it was exactly opposite. See, in FERA the problem is whatever you do, it is a offense. FERA was like that. So foreign exchange or foreign transactions was generally considered as criminal. So enforcement directorate was so powerful they could arrest any person without even any arrest warrant. So FERA basically did not encourage foreign trade. Simple. For you to understand, FERA did not encourage foreign trade. So they said we don't want foreign trade. You should know this very well. And because we were in socialism. So general philosophy of the government changed in 1990. So we know very well LPG, correct? Liberalization, privatization, globalization, correct? That time under the leadership of Manmohan Singh, P.V. Narasimha Rao, Subramaniam Swamy, all of that we had the LPG. So after that we studied this everywhere. We studied in school, we studied in +2, we studied in degree. So in FEMA also we have that. So in foreign exchange what happens is that the general philosophy of the government underwent a sea change. That means the government started to feel we should have foreign trade. That is why foreign exchange, or Forex, what we call in short form, has increased after 1991. Because the government changed their viewpoint. Government changed their mindset. What they used to tell before, no. They used to say no to foreign trade. They started to tell yes, because it was also a necessity, and around the world socialism started to fail. Correct? And the capitalist countries like USA or Japan or South Korea, all these countries started to prosper. And USSR itself broke down. They became so many countries, and it was a time when India also was very, very poor, and we had a huge economic crisis in 1990-91, and we said let us change our policy. We started to encourage the government and foreign government and foreign companies, and more importantly we started to encourage private business. That is important for us to know. Private business was not encouraged. Everything was government control. Thanks to 1991, the whole approach of the government changed. So in 1997 later, the government formed the Tarapur committee. So one Mr. Tarapore, so you can pronounce it as Tarapur or Tarapore. So he said that let us have a new legislative or a new law for foreign exchange. Because now what did we have? We had the FERA, and FERA is a draconian legislation. Anything you do, even if you cough, they'll say no, it is a violation. It was like that. It was a very, very strict law. So that is why finally the Tarapore committee said, let us have a new law. And long story cut short, we need to understand that 1st June 2000 we had the new law which finally came into force, that is the Foreign Exchange Management Act, and it has repealed the FERA. So now what was FERA was removed and we enter new law FEMA. It was more open, it was encouraging foreign business, it was encouraging private business, it was encouraging foreign transactions, export, import, everything. So as I told you, Indian history made India conservative in foreign trade and investments. Why? Because we felt that anything foreign, again people will rule us or they will misuse us. And it was also true, because India had faced more than 1000 years of invasion. Obviously the Indian mentality was like, let us not deal with anything to do with foreign, let us be on our own. Unfortunately it did not work. So from 1947 to 1990-91 we did not make very big progress in the big government industries or the big factories. The world was very fast, India was slow. This was a major problem which we faced, and we had to catch up. And for a country of crores of people, 1991 to around 2020, now we have some progress, and the main reason for that is opening the economy. Now opening the economy means any private people could do business, correct? So now what happens in the FEMA? So FEMA basically it deals with inbound investment into India and outbound investment from India, and trade and business between India and other countries. So in general, what does it do? Facilitating external trade. So what does FEMA do? It facilitates external trade. Now as you go further, this is very important for exam. What does FEMA provide for? It basically provides for free transactions in current account, then export proceeds are encouraged, then authorized person should be the person for foreign exchange. So authorized person here means basically banks. So what happens is dealings in foreign exchange, any dollar coming into India, any rupees going outside India, we need to go through the bank, and bank we call here is the authorized person. So they are the money changer or anything related to the transactions. Then FEMA has mainly the offences. This is the important part. This is where your role of company secretary is important in advising the directors and other people in the company so that they are not going to be punishable. So you have to protect. Yes. So how will you protect directors? By having the knowledge of FEMA. So please ensure that if there is any offence also, how can you appeal? What are the provisions of the appellate tribunal? How do we go to High Court, and how do we solve the issue? So this is what is the FEMA. Now we come to applicability. Now let us understand to where does this FEMA apply. FEMA applies to whole of India. That is very, very important for us to understand. And very importantly, FEMA, we need to know it is the supreme law. Or what we say supreme? Supreme law when we talk about foreign exchange in India. Anything related to foreign exchange, it is our FEMA. That is the important thing. See, there is no confusion that FEMA is the law when we talk about the foreign exchange of India. So what is the scheme of FEMA? So please understand that generally FEMA has multiple things we should know. The first thing is all the current account transactions are free. So anything you do in a current account, they are allowed. You don't need special permission. Okay, we'll come to that in detail later. Now you just know all the current account transactions are free. All capital account transactions are generally prohibited unless exempted. So please have that there are restrictions on the current account transactions, yes, but generally capital account transactions should be permitted by Reserve Bank of India. So that means capital account transactions are generally prohibited. And please remember that in the scheme of FEMA, we need to know that RBI has a very important control, and authorized dealer. When we talk about authorized person, authorized dealer, it is usually the banks. Banks are the authorized persons. Now, we know that it has enforcement penalties, all of that. Apart from this, when we talk about overall scheme of FEMA, we have to know what are the other agencies, very important. What are the other agencies involved? So, we have the DIPP. Now, name has been changed. So, whenever we have the FDI policy, it comes under that department. Then we have the Ministry of Finance, which talks about the different guidelines, instructions. Then we have the SEBI. When we come to ADR, GDR, we have SEBI. So these are the authorities involved apart from the FEMA law, and this is important for us to know. So what is the structure of FEMA? So here basically this you should remember, FEMA has 7 chapters. How many chapters? 7 chapters. Sections 49 sections. So it's easy for you to remember, 7 sevens are 49, correct? So that is just for you to remember. So we have 7 chapters and 49 sections in the law. So here the first 12 sections we call it as the operational part. That is how we have the regulation and management of the foreign exchange, who is the authorized person, what are the rules related to them. Then we have things like contravention, adjudication, then directorate of enforcement. Apart from this, so this we have the 49 sections. But the FEMA structure, please remember in exam, apart from this you have to write, we have other things like the rules which comes under the FEMA. So section 46 talks about the rules framing authority by Ministry of Finance. So Ministry of Finance will make the rules. How in company law we have Ministry of Corporate Affairs which makes the rules. Ministry of Finance will make the rules in FEMA. Then we have the RBI coming into picture, RBI regulations. Then FDI policy is given by the Department of Promotion of Industry and Internal Trade, DPIIT. So now there is no DIPP. Now DIPP is renamed as Department for Promotion of Industry and Internal Trade. And then we have the Reserve Bank of India notifications. So what we should know is when we talk about FEMA, we have to know that we have Ministry of Finance, we have Reserve Bank of India, and we have the DPIIT, this department. So this is the structure which you should know. If you know the structure, everything else becomes easy. The rules made under FEMA, we should know what are the rules. So here we have a list like foreign exchange management, encashment of draft check instrument, and payment of interest. So how do we do that will come. So this is just a list. You don't have to by heart this list now because we have all this in detail, but trying to give an idea what is the rules. So if you see here, we have the FEMA structure, correct? Here we have to understand that the rules which we talk here, this rules is the list over here. Current account transactions, what can be done, what cannot be done. Then the authentication of documents, how do we sign documents, compounding of the proceedings, adjudication of proceedings and appeal. All this rules is given by whom? Ministry of Finance. Enabling provision is section 46 of the Foreign Exchange Management Act 1999. Came into force 2000. That is just for your memory I am telling. Correct? This is how you should write. So what are the regulations? So first is rules. Then we should come to regulations. So as you can see, we have multiple regulations which is coming under this. So again if you see here, section 47 of the FEMA gives the power to be made by RBI. So regulations made by RBI under section 47. So section 46 is Ministry of Finance and the regulations will come under Reserve Bank of India. Section 47. This is very important. So to have a regulatory framework of FEMA, you should know Ministry of Finance makes rules and the Reserve Bank of India will make the regulations. Like what? Example, we have the foreign exchange management, acquisition and transfer of immovable property outside India. See, this whole lesson is the basic structure of FEMA. You should know what is the overall things which is happening. So who gives the rules? Ministry of Finance. Who gives the regulations? RBI. Where is the power for RBI? Section 47 of FEMA. Where is the power for Ministry of Finance? Section 46 of Foreign Exchange Management Act. Very, very simple. See, if you know the structure, this whole lesson becomes so easy. Foreign Exchange Management, Export of Goods and Services Regulations 2015. Foreign Exchange Management Insurance Regulations 2015. Foreign Exchange Management Remittance of Assets. So for everything, you need a clear roadmap. How you can do, how you cannot do, what you can do, what you cannot do. And that is what we have in the regulations, which is given by the Reserve Bank of India. This is the brief small chapter. So don't worry about all the list. You don't have to remember all these 24 things. Whatever are important are there in the syllabus in the further chapters as I explained to you. So we have a quick lesson roundup as per the ICSI study material. We understood that FERA was there and FEMA has replaced. So repeal of FERA because of FEMA came into picture. Then why do we have generally FEMA? To facilitate external trade and payments. Orderly development. You use these words in exam. See, when we use the same words, the examiner will be definitely impressed. Orderly development and maintenance of the foreign exchange market. And you can also write, see what is not in the book I told you, right? The history, why we had FERA. If you look at Indian history, we did not want to deal with foreigners. But in 1991, we had a problem, we had to deal with everyone. So we entered the FEMA. So FEMA has current account and capital account transactions. Current account is usually free, that is allowed. All current account transactions are allowed unless until prohibited. All capital account transactions are prohibited unless until allowed. Remember this phrase, very, very simple. What is it? All current account transactions are free, that is are allowed. All capital account transactions are prohibited unless until permitted. Very, very simple. Last thing is capital account transactions are permitted, which is as per the RBI regulations. So we have to see this very, very well. So in this chapter, there's one sentence you should remember. All current account transactions are allowed. All capital account transactions prohibited unless exempted. Who will exempt it? Reserve Bank of India. So that comes to the end of our chapter, which is related to the Foreign Exchange Management Act 1999. Introduction. Very small chapter, introduction. And this is very important in EBCL.